Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to our webinar on Kickstarting your multi-cloud red team journey, strategies, tools, and real-world tactics webinar. I'm Nandini Bharagwaj, the operating officer at CWL and your host for today's session. So let's get started. We are CW Labs, a global infosec company shaping the future of cybersecurity learning with a presence across UK, US, and India. Our mission is simple: make cybersecurity practical and accessible. We do this through our two powerful division, that is Niche Cyber Range Labs. It's a real world hands-on cyber exercise. And number second, that is Continuous Learning Infinity platform. So we have recently launched a premium model, a continuous learning hub built for modern cyber pros. To check out, please visit the link that I'll be dropping in the chat box. Additionally, CWL provides customized on-site training for organizations and accept bulk order for corporate upscaling. For more details, you can mail us or reach out to support@cyberwarfare.live. So that's all about the company. Let's move on to next slide. So let me introduce to our speaker of today's webinar, that is Manish Gupta. He is the CEO of Cyber Warfare Labs with over 7.5 years of expertise in offensive information security, specializing in red teaming activities and renowned for his research in real-world cyber attack simulation and advanced persistent threats. Manish has presented esteemed conferences like Blackhead USA, DEF CON, and many more. So let's get ready to learn from his wealth of experience and insights. So dear participants, thank you for being part of this webinar. We look forward for your continuous participation. And here, without further ado, I would like Manish sir to take over and let's get started.
Okay, yeah, thanks everyone for joining this session. So today we'll discuss about how you can start your multi-cloud red team journey. What are the tools, techniques, what strategy you have to use it to perform the red team operation in multi-cloud environment. As we already know that now these days, organizations are moving from on-premise to the cloud environment. So even they are using a lot of cloud services that can be hosted on different cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, GCP, Alibaba. All these platforms have they are secure. But there are a lot of ways that threat actor can use to bypass uh, different misconfigurations that can be happen due to the unaware of administrators, or that can be happen with different reasons. So in this particular webinar we will see like if you have this on-premises red team mindset, how you can start your journey with a cloud mindset. What are the different things that is not there in on-premise, and what are the different ways are there in the cloud. So here this is just a beginner guides to understand what are the different ways we can use it to perform red team operations in multi-cloud environment. So let's get started. So here you can see this is a traditional on-premise environment that we already if you have experience with on-premises red teaming, you already have the knowledge about how this Active Directory environment works. And then we have there is one more network called external network. That network which mostly organizations use to host the their web application, their website, their mail server, DNS server, everything's hosted in the external network. And internal network, they have their own premises like Active Directory environments where employees or external vendors and all these things are participates together. Now, in front of external network, we have a firewall, and this is where internet or threat actor or end user will sit here. So to get access to the internal network, they have to bypass, they have to the firewall, and then they have to compromise the external network, and then they have to compromise the internal network. So they have to go through a lot of different firewall, different security controls. But cloud is completely different. You directly have access to any services because cloud is everything is public, and we or end user can directly access those services, and they can perform the attacks on those exposed services. So, and there are different ways are there. We will see all these things in our upcoming slides. So let's talk about the AWS cloud. So here in this particular, this sessions, we will discuss about three major cloud providers: AWS, Azure, and GCP. These are the three major cloud providers. There are other cloud providers as well, but we are discussing about these three providers. Now, when we're talking about AWS, which is very popular cloud providers here, lot of organization, lot of companies, start from startups to big MNCs are using their services. Even government agencies also using the AWS clouds there. So how the organization manage those clouds? So there is a one master account and there will be hundreds of child accounts. So master account is basically a AWS account which is used to manage all the child's account. So in traditional, you are aware that we have a domain controller and we have thousands of workstation servers. All servers, workstations are managed by these domain controller. Even we push any policies, everything is managed by domain controller. But in AWS case, we have a AWS master account and we have a hundreds of thousands of child account. So suppose one account can use for so the staging environment, one account for production environment, one account for any other purpose. So now, but these all the accounts are managed by a single master account. Now, why we discuss? Because from the red team point of view, your motive is to not just compromise a single AWS account, but you have to, your motive is to laterally move from one account to another account, and then at the end finally compromise the master account. That will be a end motive for each and every attackers or red teamers there. But this is the architecture this AWS follow. Now let's go for Azure. How does this Azure follow? So Azure basically have a three primary uh, services. One is Azure AD, that's name changes to Entra ID. Second one we have Azure ARM, and third one is Office 365 or M365. Now when you say, when you create any resource, that can be a virtual machines, that can be any, serverless functions or a storage or anything. When you created it, that's part of ARM, that is Azure Resource Manager. So everything like infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service are comes in the part of Azure ARM. Second thing is there is one more service called Azure AD or Entra ID that is very popular because that's provide identity as a service. So suppose if you're using any external applications, right, Okta, OneLogin, or your HR portal or anything that can be integrated with Azure AD as an identity. So now we can also use Azure AD to connect with ARM. Basically, it's by default, it's connected. So if you create any users, if you create any service account, that is part of Azure AD. So everything, every authentications and authorizations is take place in Azure AD. And apart from this one, when you create any resource management, things happen on ARM side. Third one is M365. Let's suppose your organization is using Outlook over the web, or Microsoft Team, or any other software services that is part of Microsoft 365 or Office 365. So these are the three primary service. But when you perform red team operations, if there is a scope is defined that you can only do pen testing or red team operation only on ARM, right? Like resources that belong to that organizations, you are not supposed to touch these two services. But if it's a, like they said, okay, we want to do the pen testing or red team only on M365 side, then your scope will be this restricted here. When you say when we're doing red team activities on the entire Azure, that's Azure services that belongs to that organization, these are the three major components part of our scope. Azure AD, that means Entra ID, that is most attackable or valuable item because the actual authentication happen on Entra ID only, and then rest of the things based on our motive. Like we want to exfiltrate some data which is stored in ARM, that is a separate motive. If you want to send a mail or receive a mail or get the content of that mail, that is part of here. So based on our objective, we can target the specific Azure service and then we can perform the actions there. Now the third one is Google Cloud. So similar like Azure, Google Cloud also have these three kind of services: Cloud Identity, Google Cloud, and Google Workspace. So if you say if you want to have any kind of identity that can be user service principal groups, that is part of cloud identity. And then if you want to create any resource, like anything, VM, storage, Lambda functions, sorry, in GCP, it's like cloud functions or anything, then you created it, it's part of Google Cloud, or similar like in Microsoft Azure Office 365. In Google Cloud, they have a called Google Workspace, where we have a Google Meet, where we have a Google Mail services, Google Meet services, Google Document services. That is part of Google Workspace. See, here also, based on our objective, based on our scope, we can target the specific services there. So this is how these three cloud providers works. Now, from the red team point of view, how we can start it, what are the things we have to learn it, what tools we can use it, that comes to the second point. So we discuss about AWS, Azure, and GCP. Now, see, without on-premises, like because the existing organizations, they have using existing on-premises Active Directory, they are using hybrid environment. Hybrid environment means they are using cloud services as well as they are using on-premises Active Directory or on-premises services to host their resources. Like some services they are using for AWS, some services they are using Azure, some services they are using GCP, but some of the services they are using for on-premise. In that case, that's become a hybrid environment. In hybrid environment, the biggest advantage of a user is, so suppose if you compromise a on-premise systems, then you get an identity of a user. Identity means email ID and password. Now these days, the federation is happening. So the same email ID and password, you can use it, that you use it in on-premises to access any cloud services. Or if organization is using any external identity provider like Okta, OneLogin, Azure AD, or any other identity providers, you can access other application as well. So that means they are using single sign-on SSO there. With the single credentials, you can access hundreds of applications that is assigned to that particular user. So that's the advantage that doing red teaming operations, that the advantage red teamers or threat actor are using. Now, when it comes to the credentials, right? Like we know in the on-premises, we have only one set of credentials uh, that is used by a user. The one set of credential is your username and password. Username means your email ID and password. That's the one credential we use it to authenticate to our on-premise AD or any other applications. But in cloud, the things are different. Like when we talk about AWS, Azure, GCP, or any other cloud providers, the things is different. That cloud providers are using two different kind of credentials. One is long-term credentials and another one is short-term credentials. So long-term credentials are the credentials which is valid for a long duration of time. Just like we have a username and password or we have a service account. Second one is short-term credentials, which is valid for a certain period of time. Just like if you want to access particular resources for 2 hours, we can get the short-term credentials. The in long-term credential itself, there are two type of credentials. One is GUI credentials. That means where user intervention is required. Suppose you logged in, so you have to enter your username, password, MFA, and all these details. Where interactive login is happen. So that case, this is the username and password, which is part of long-term credentials. Second thing is there is called programmatic credentials. Like if you want your Terraform to create some resources, or if you want Terraform to do some actions where user intervention is not required, or where you want your application to do something on a periodically basis, like in night sometime, day sometime, morning sometime. In that case, your human intervention is not required. So that case, we have to create a programmatic interface CLI credentials. That credential is in format of access key, service principal, or service account, where human intervention is not required. Even the second biggest advantage is MFA is also not required. So suppose if you have just a private key, that is a service principal key or service account key, you can access any resources that is valid for a longer durations. And second thing is there is no MFA required in that case. So that's the advantage of our GUI credentials. And the last one is access token. Access token is basically when you want to access some resources for a short duration of time. So in that case, the access token is required. Now we'll see these things in our practical scenario. So before moving next, this is the fundamental of how AWS, Azure, GCP, and what kind of credentials are required. Now, second things come into our mind is what operating systems, what tools should I use to do these operations there? I got the basic idea, okay, this is how AWS, Azure, and GCP is. But what kind of tools I require? Is there any operating systems? Do I need to install all this tool in my Kali Linux or my operating system, or is there any operating system available in the markets? What kind of tools we required it? So yeah, that's correct. So we built an operating system called Red Cloud OS. So Red Cloud OS is basically uh, uh, you know cloud adversary simulations operating system for red teamers. So we, as of now, we configured AWS, Azure, and GCP, just major cloud providers. There are tools already there. It's similar like Kali Linux or any other pre-configured operating system. It's open source. You just need to download it, run it in your VMware, and you can use all the tools, which is mostly used by threat actors or red teamers to do pen testing, security assessment, or any kind of red teaming activities in the cloud side. So you can see this is the steps you can follow it to download this operating system without worrying about touching your base operating system, downloading anything on your your office laptop or your personal laptop in the home system. So you can download this VMware image, you can configure it in your VMware virtualization things, and then you can start doing all these things. There is a getting started cloud PDF is already there, so you can get the idea how we can suppose what kind of credentials I required, how we can start the pen testing or red teaming there. Then the operating system is already there. These are the tools which we already configured in this operating system. We continuously, adding a new tools, and we also check from the security point of view if any tools have any kind of vulnerability. We'll try to patch those vulnerability from the GitHub itself. So this is we are trying to make it latest one. So all the tools, all the CLIs are pre-configured in this operating system. It's free of cost. It's open source. You can download it and you can use it. Most of the people, when we so these tools we already demonstrated in Black Hat, DEF CON, and different security conferences. So you can go ahead and you can download and you can run it. These are the tools which are there, so you can use those tools to perform those actions there. Okay, so we have a tools in AWS, we have a tools in Azure, all the major tools. We have a tools in GCP along with their CLI. So each and every cloud providers have their CLI. So we already installed those CLI there, and there are multi-cloud tools is already there. Everything is mentions in our GitHub, how you can download it, what you need to do, what password you need to do, and everything is mentioned there. Even if you have any query questions, you can directly reach out to us, or you can raise a pull request or issues there to get any query or questions or any confusion you have. We also have a PDF, so that will help you to suppose you install everything, then you confuse how we can start it, which tool we use it. Everything is mentioned there in this particular PDF there. Now, for this particular scenario, I'll just show you a small demonstrations how actually attack works in the cloud side. So in that case, if you want to practice it, suppose you don't have any lab and anything, so we build a platform called Infinity Learning. We are adding a lot, different challenges there. So challenges can be challenges, so suppose how you can access it, just connect it with your. You just need to sign it with your Google account and you can access. So there are paid and premium, paid as well as free challenges there. Go ahead and just try to access it. These are the categories that we already have. We have cloud security, DevOps, Kubernetes, on-premise, APT lab, that's the simulations of the real world attacks that is happen there. So suppose if you want to check for cloud challenges, we have a both offensive as well as defensive. And challenges are free of course. You can go ahead and you can try to access it. So suppose if you want to pick for AWS challenge, you can pick it. Yeah, you can just filter out what kind of challenge you want. You want free, paid, or any other specific tactics type or services you want to add it. You can just select it in the build filter. Now, suppose if you want to see for this specific challenge, that's target to a VM. It's very popular. Like we can create our own virtual machines in our cloud side. So, but what happened? What kind of attacks a threat actor can perform? So let's start the lab there. So it will take just a second to start your lab. So suppose now everything is mentioned here. What is your task? What is your objective? What you have to do it? And if you stuck somewhere, it will walk you through step by step what you need to do it. So suppose let's started with this one. So we get a this particular URL. Let's copy this URL. So you can see this is the applications which is running on EC2 instance on AWS. Now, if this application is running on any cloud providers, what we can do? So first we have to identify if there are any vulnerability available or if there are any misconfiguration there in this particular applications. So you can follow the step-by-step guide. So here, suppose this is HR portal. Let's say I just want to check if any remote code executions or any command injection kind of vulnerability is there or not. So you just type so this is for web application testing side. You have to first test this application to identify if there are any RC or remote code executions or command injection vulnerabilities there or not. So suppose I identify that there is a command injection vulnerability. How I can identify? So based on your experience in web pen testing, you have to identify that okay, which field is actually vulnerable to command injections or remote code execution there. So here you can see I'm able to execute a system command here in the phone. So phone field where I can execute the system command here. So now one interesting thing here if the applications that you are accessing it and you identify it's hosted on any of the cloud providers and this application have a remote code executions or command injection or remote code execution vulnerability, you can exfiltrate the metadata. This is the very important when you're talking about the cloud side. Suppose if it's hosted on premises, what we can do, we can upload our reverse shell, we can take the reverse shell, then we can perform the privilege escalation of that VM based on if it's Windows or Linux VM, and then we can try to laterally move. In the cloud in the cloud, the first thing keep in your mind is when you identify there is application hosted on any of the cloud side, you have to check for metadata. So metadata, how you can check it? Use curl command, and there is a metadata URL that is valid for all the cloud providers. This is a non-routable URL. That means you can't access from your browser. You have to access from the resource which is hosted on the cloud side. So suppose we are using application which is hosted on VM, and from there we are accessing this particular URL. So that's all. So you can see it here when you use this specific crafted a URL, which is called metadata URL 169.254, 169.254, you can access this kind of directory structures. If you found this kind of a directory structure, that means it's hosted on AWS cloud. The first thing the first thing when you're doing this kind of assessment, any web application assessment, when you're doing it and you identify any RC or command executions, the first thing click in your mind is to check for the metadata service. Once you will check the metadata, you will get to know that this is hosted on the cloud and which cloud providers. Each and every cloud providers are using the same metadata URL, but they have a different directory structures. This is a structure for AWS. So suppose let's see for this particular directory. One second, this is multiple time. Okay, so you can see dynamic and metadata. There are two again. So there is a directory inside this latest directory. Again, you have to check it for this one. One second, this is coming twice. I think we can remove one. And then you can see again there is a one directory structure. So this is how our cloud have a different directory kind of. So they have all the informations like what is the AMI ID belongs to that particular VM, where application is hosted, and we have instance ID, public ID, private ID. For our purpose, we are looking for, here you can see there is one uh, event identity credentials there. We have a local network system, public. So all these informations are here. So this is the one directory called IAM directory where we have the metadata as a security credentials. Let's go, let's check it. So you can see you have a security credential. Let's copy the security credential file. So this is again a directory. Now this is the role which is attached here. So once you get to know about this one, you'll get to know what is the role and how you can attach it here. Let's copy this role and this again paste it. So this is the file which is present in metadata, which have the information about. So you can see I got access of access key ID, secret, and token. These are the three things we required in form of temporary token. This is a valid credential. So you can see I don't have any access on the cloud, but with this credentials, I can access it. Okay, so now you can do one thing. So suppose this is these are the three credentials you required: access key ID, secret, and token. Now let's open a. So now what I'm going to do it, I'm just there is a file, credential file stored in a particular user. So what I'm trying to do it, I'm just trying to uh, copy this credential so I can access those the credentials on behalf of the user or role which is this credential is valid. Let me copy it. So this is not valid. I think I'll go and check it. So now the first thing is it's already here. So what you can do, this is how you. So there are two, three different ways to set these credentials. Like you can export this credential. If you're using Windows, if you're using Linux, you can use it. So suppose I'm using export services here. Export, and then you have to specify the client ID. Client ID, it's already there in this portal. This is your access key ID. Let's copy this ID. Now, again, what we need to do, we have to export the access key. This is ID, this is access key. Then you have to go here and then you have to find out the secret access key. This is access key. Okay, and let's copy here again. And third one is your session token. Session token, if any of the credential you identify and then you get the session token, that means set short-term credential because session token is valid for a certain period of time. So let's copy it, and then we can copy the session token from here. So I'll do one thing. Let's copy it. It's long. Or you can do one thing. You just open it and inspect it. This is where you can get the session token. 1 second, just copy it here. Let me copy this one to get the. This is header. This is a body. 1 second, I can directly go and check. This is where everything is contained here. You can see it here. So it's basically it's not visible properly here in this particular page, but it's there in the. So I'll do one thing. So I'll just here you can see it. I'll just trying to copy from here to this entire session token. I need to copy it still here and paste it here. So these are the three things we required: your access key ID, your secret access key, and session token. So once you configured it, you have to just check it if it's a valid or not. How you can check it? Check the validity. You have to use the command called AWS STS get caller identity. This is the command which is used to check if your token, the credentials that you identify is valid or not. And if it's a valid, it belongs to which user. So you can see it belongs to EC2 prod role, the same role that is attached to this here. So the same role you can get it check here. EC2 prod role. So this is how so this is how you can access the any of the cloud providers. So you can see I just compromise applications, and that application have access on that application is hosted on any of the cloud providers, and from there I can retrieve these temporary tokens which is there in the metadata service, and based on the permissions which is attached to this role, you can perform lateral movement, you can perform privilege escalations, you can perform any kind of attacks there. So this is how you can get the initial access, and then you can perform different attack. This is what is not there in the on-premises. That's the major difference there in the on-premises and the cloud. So if you identify any application there, this is how the first thing you should keep in mind that to get the access token with this metadata URL. And then so suppose I configured it down, you can use this AWS CLI to check if this particular role, what kind of permission is assigned to this role. This role can create a backdoor, or is there any way this role can escalate their privilege. Then we have to check for the lateral movement. That's the next step there. So till now it's like how you can started your red teaming there. So if you want to practice it, you can come and you can practice in this our infinity learning platforms. You can start, you can stop the labs, and once you identify the flag, you just need to submit this flag, and then you are one step ahead with other people. It's not just about VMs. So we have hundreds of different challenges based on different experience and different complexity. You can see their complexity, free or paid, or if you complete it, you will get it in certain level. You will get a certain points there. So if you want to, just want to start your red team journey, one thing is you need to, understand how this cloud architecture works. Second thing is you just need to configure your operating system, and the third one is you have to use our Infinity platform. So we have a challenge for not just AWS, we have a challenge of Azure, we have a challenge of GCP, and we have a challenge AWS Azure GCP. We have a offensive and defensive. If you want to check for the defensive side, then you can also select this one and you can do it. So this is how these things work. So any questions, any query anybody have here? If anybody, you can just directly put it in our chat box. If anybody have any questions, I'm just stop sharing my screen. Okay, yeah. So one questions, you got it. So you can directly ask the questions in our this go-to meetings. Yeah. So one questions. Yeah. So basically, this particular, uh, the Red Cloud OS that we build it, you can configure this Red Cloud OS in your, any of the virtual machine platform. You can use it. So we designed for VMware, so but you can use it for VirtualBox, but it's more compatible on the VMware. Yeah. So this second question is this particular non-routable URL 169.254, 169.254 is accessible outside of cloud resources? No. This particular URL can only be accessible when your compute resource within the cloud premises. That is applicable for all these three cloud services: AWS, Azure, and GCP. So even if your resources are hosted on AWS or Azure or GCP, you can use this 169.254, 169.254 to access these metadata services. Metadata services is not just credentials, but apart from this one, they have other services like what is the instance ID, what is the public ID, what is the network architecture. Everything is stored there in metadata there. Okay, any questions, any queries? If you have any questions, any queries, and anything you have, just you can reach out to us on our Discord, or you can directly send us a mail. Yeah, and yeah, I request you to just try it with this Infinity Learning platforms. It's really good. You can start your red team journey there. Okay, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoy these sessions. I hope you learn something new here. Okay, yeah, thank you so much.